Hello and very warm welcome to all of you in this edition of Public Forum. I'm Anurag Punetha with you. Today we are going to talk about Taliban's rapid gains in Afghanistan as situation is getting worse in Afghanistan. Taliban are getting stronger with every passing day, and on Saturday India decided to close its consulate in Kandahar, and India sent its one of the plane to evacuate approximately 50 diplomats and security personnel of the ITBP to bring back those people to India. What does it mean for India and India's interest in Afghanistan, as it is almost certain that the Taliban are going to take control of the entire country, as they claim that they have taken approximately more than 80% of the land. As the way US has pulled out from Bagram particularly, this has emboldened Taliban particularly after US withdrawal. So we are going to discuss about all these things and India's interest and the future of Afghanistan in this edition of Public Forum with two guests. And joining me for the discussion, former ambassador and diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar, who's in the studio. Very warm welcome to the show, Ashok ji.
Thank you.
My second guest is joining me through online, Dr. Shriram Cholia, foreign affairs expert. Dr. Cholia, very warm welcome in the show. Ashok ji, I would begin with you. India has pulled out from Kandahar and closed its consulate. How do you see the situation, the way the things are taking place in Afghanistan, and India's geopolitical interest in particularly in Afghanistan?
Yes, I think as you said very rightly, the situation has been transforming very rapidly, particularly after the departure of the United States from the Bagram Air Base, and they did it at the dead of night without even telling the Afghan commander.
That's very strange. I mean, the
very
way they
strange,
have.
very strange, because what they have said is that their prime responsibility is the security and safety of their personnel, of the soldiers. So they wanted to withdraw so that there would be no backlash, there would be no fresh attacks from the Taliban. So that is why in the middle of the night they departed and putting off the lights, and the Afghan commander says that he came to know that they have left after about 2 hours or so.
After 2 hours or so.
So that is very strange. And the other thing is that the Americans are departing. You know what Mr. Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, mentioned, and subsequently what President Joe Biden mentioned, that they will depart and they will complete the evacuation by the end of August or latest by the 11th of September.
Yeah.
So that means there are no conditions that they have imposed on the Taliban, and the conditions that were imposed earlier when the agreement of 29th February was signed, that there would be lessening of violence, that there would be no connection between the Al-Qaeda and the other foreign the terrorist forces and Taliban. So none of those conditions has been reiterated or has been imposed upon the Taliban. So that is, as a result of that, Taliban is on a spree and it is extending its control. Although I would say that their statement that 85% of the territory is under their control, I think this is an exaggeration. You know what?
This may be their propaganda war.
Exactly, exactly. This is basically so that the Afghan National Security Forces, that their morale is brought down, that their confidence levels are come down, and that they start putting down their arms without putting up a fight. So I think this is something like psychological operations. But what observers there say, who are aware of the situation on the ground, they seem to suggest that about 1/3 of the 407 districts are under the control of the Taliban. There is huge contestation going on in many other places. But I think this is clear that as far as some of the districts close to the Tajikistan border, close to the Uzbek border, and even the border with Iran, they have been like the Herat province, much of the Herat province, of the Baghis province, Badakhshan. So many of these have been taken over. Now, coming to the question that you posed as far as the evacuation of the Indian diplomats and personnel from Kandahar is concerned. So I think de jure our consulate is not closed, because de jure there are still Afghan personnel who are manning the post there, Kandahar post there. But of course, it's an evolving situation. And you would recall that just about 3-4 days ago, the official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs had said that we are not evacuating, we are still present in Kandahar, in Mazar-e-Sharif, and in Kabul. Our embassy in Kabul is still functioning. But this is a very dynamic situation. This is a very evolving, rapidly evolving situation. So keeping the security of our personnel in mind, we have decided, as you said very rightly, about 50 of our personnel have been evacuated from there. And what we have also maintained is that this is a temporary situation. As soon as circumstances improve, situation improves, we are going to get back there. And it shouldn't be taken that, you know, India is abandoning its interests, because our interests are huge. And they are not only the $3 billion or so that we have invested there, but even more importantly, it is our security, which we have found in 1999 when the IC-814 was hijacked and taken there, and we had to release 2 of the terrorists, the Taliban terrorists who were in our custody.
That's right.
And we have had to pay quite a heavy price for releasing them, because many of the 26/11 attack that has been that was launched in Mumbai, that was conducted by them, and also subsequent attacks also. So our security is very much linked there, and of course it's a part of our extended neighborhood, and of course economic, cultural connection. We have very strong connection with Afghanistan. So we definitely would like to be there, and we would like, as we've said, that it should be an Afghan-owned, Afghan-controlled process, peace process. And that is what we hope going forward. So that is why India is in very regular contact. You would have seen Indian External Affairs Minister was in Iran very recently. It was his 3rd visit to Iran in about 1.5 years. He was in Qatar also very recently, when and this was 2 visits within a period of 1 week. And India is also very, very active in terms of reaching out to all stakeholders, all interlocutors, both domestic as well as external, so that we have a peaceful resolution and we are able to protect and promote our interests there.
Dr. Chalia, as Mr. Sajjana has said, that things are evolving very rapidly in Afghanistan. What is your sense that what's going to happen? I mean, are we sure that the civil war is imminent? I mean, the way some of the warlords are preparing to take on Taliban, and the Taliban is the way taking over the cities and the districts and the provinces. So how do you see situation taking place in Afghanistan?
Yeah, it's quite worrisome, Anurag, no doubt about it. Some of these warlords you mentioned are mobilizing because they realize that they cannot depend on the Afghan state. And the Afghan state is retreating, no doubt about it. The Afghan state, National Afghan Defense Forces, they still have 20 to 30,000 well-trained special forces, commandos, who can match Taliban and beat them also in conflict. Like recently they did in Badghis province. They pushed the Taliban back from the capital Kalaino. But they are, incapable of holding the fort everywhere. So I think some of these ethnic-based militiamen are arming, and so yes, that has echoes of the 1990s when there was civil war. But some of these, the history of Afghanistan has always been mostly decentralized. It's never had, except during the initial years of the formation of the Afghan state in the 19th century by Ahmad Shah Durrani. Otherwise, most of the time they have been scattered. So I think the decentralization is in a way becoming inevitable. So I think a single state, even if the Taliban capture Kabul, does not mean they're going to control the whole country, you see. So there are a lot of these Tajik, Uzbek, even Hazaras with the small Shia minorities have now started having their own militia for self-protection now, because they don't see the state present anywhere to come to their rescue. So it may be parceled out. I think the scenario of a complete Islamic Emirate, which the Taliban want to re-establish over the whole country, is not going to come to pass. At least not anytime soon. So I think it will be a divided and a fragmented polity. General Atta Noor is there in Badakhshan, in Balkh. Ahmad Masood, the son of Ahmad Shah Masood, is in Panjshir. Abdul Rashid Dostum is there in Jawzjan in the north. The Uzbek warlord Ismail Khan is there in Herat on the west, on the border towards Iran. These are all, they command thousands of loyal tribesmen and clansmen. So they are not going to easily defect to Taliban. And they have their own interests and turfs to protect. And in a way, I think Ambassador Sajjanar was mentioning, India also, we are in touch with all the key domestic players. In the past, we have had very strong links with some of these ethnic militiamen and warlords. And unfortunately, ideally, the moderate, secular, and liberal Afghan state should have been our best bet. But right now, when the state is crumbling and Ashraf Ghani, the president, is withdrawing deeper and deeper into the presidential palace, and almost like...
In fact, there was a report that Mr. Ghani's family has left Afghanistan.
They would be evacuated because they're afraid of what happened to Najibullah in the 1990s.
Exactly.
So I think we have to look at who are the main bets to somehow maintain a balance of power. And of course, the regional powers, as Ambassador Sajjanar was saying, we are conferring with all of them. Some of them have strong ethnic links with these warlords also inside Afghanistan. And we have to just make sure that, this 30% control of Taliban doesn't become 70 or 80%, because then, it's a de facto takeover and the Islamic Emirate. So I think there's still a long way for a complete Taliban overrun of the place. But yes, the scare scenarios are there. We have to plan. Air combat support that the Americans used to offer, it has just vanished now. And that's the biggest problem. There's no air support. So if the regional powers can come up with a plan to have some American presence in the region, because right now Americans are going to operate from Qatar or Bahrain, which is 5-6 hours away. They don't have any neighboring place from which a launch pad from which to come in and do air support. And some of the regional countries may even consider ground forces. Ambassador Sajjanar is mentioning the borders with Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Iran. If the borders are captured by Taliban, how can those neighboring countries stand by and do nothing? They can't allow Taliban to take over because they've been inimical to their interests. So they will have to push back. They will have to send some forces. The time when we are saying that, ground forces is a no-no from outside, I think is not tenable. India is far away. India is not right next door. But the country is right next door. And India can, I think, support through air and other means, at least refueling and, with bombs and such things, because we need to do something. If not ground forces, then at least air support and maintenance of spare parts and training of pilots. Afghan Air Force is now critical because after the Americans have gone, that is a big vacuum.
Okay. He's rightly said, probably the immediate neighbors are feeling the pain, has started feeling the pain. Countries like Iran, Turkey and Tajikistan. And there is a huge refugee crisis. The people are rushing. Don't you think that these countries will all also involve in the situation in coming days and months, whether Taliban takes 100% of the territory or the 70 or 80%. So would it be a kind of a repeat what we saw in 90s, a civil war kind of situation with the majority of the stake with the Taliban, and other leaders like other claimants like Tajiks and Hazaras and other Shias would also somehow keep fighting? So how do you see this coming?
Anurag, the civil war definitely is a possibility. One cannot really say that it does not, the possibility does not exist, because even the commander of the United States, General Miller, he's also mentioned that, civil war is a definite possibility. And I think Taliban feels, Taliban with the help of the Pakistanis, they feel that they are in a triumphant mood, triumphant, and that they are on a roll and they can sort of, capture as much territory as possible. But I think there are a couple of things also, in addition to what Dr. Cholia has said, and very rightly so, we need to be conscious about. Number one, that Taliban itself is also not a unified structure, because, some elements of Taliban would really want that they should limit themselves to the borders of Afghanistan and establish an Islamic Emirate there. But there are other elements which have aspirations and ambitions of reaching out beyond the borders of Afghanistan. And then they would like to collaborate with, they would like to partner with Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, etc. and move out. So I think as the situation develops and evolves, there is going to be, we are going to see more of this happening. Secondly, you see, as far as, I'll not talk about Pakistan to that extent, but if we are to see what is happening as far as Iran is concerned. Now, Iran is a Shia state. Here, Taliban is a Sunni Wahhabi state. And here, next to Herat, the western province, you have the Hazaras. And Iran is already hosting about 3 million Afghan refugees. So it doesn't want the situation to get out of control. So it will do everything possible to keep the Taliban under check, so to say, you know, that they don't go all out. And as it is now, we've been seeing that there are increasing number of refugees that are going out. We saw even 1,000 Afghan security forces which fled to Tajikistan. Also we need to realize that Russia has 2 very big bases in Tajikistan. It has a base in Kyrgyzstan, basically to try and protect itself, you know, if there is some sort of an instability and increased violence as far as Afghanistan is concerned. And similarly, Uzbekistan would also be very worried as far as this is concerned. Now, so far, what the Russians have been saying, have been maintaining, is that we are talking with the Taliban. Taliban wants to restrict itself only within the borders of Afghanistan. But going forward, it doesn't appear to be so very easy, because you know, if Taliban is able to capture the border posts with Tajikistan, with Uzbekistan, and also, you know, and Tajikistan is not a very stable government. So far, it is only with the help, the president, the Emomali Rahman, only with the power of force that they are able to keep the instability within their own country. And if the Taliban were to come there, or certain elements, then that would give rise to the local elements. So they have Taliban, the Tajik forces, they have marshaled, they have put together about 20,000 reservists, and they are bringing them to the border. So I think there is a great deal of uncertainty. And to say that Taliban will be able to completely run over, because even the Russians, they have said that they are not going to put their forces into Afghanistan. But as far as the borders with the Central Asian countries, and there are 3 of them, about 1,300 kilometer border with Tajikistan, 137 kilometer border with Uzbekistan, and about 700-800 kilometer border with Turkmenistan. Now, Turkmenistan is completely closed in that sense. But we've seen that there have been skirmishes between the Taliban and the Turkmen soldiers. And they have killed the Turkmen soldiers. So I think all around the border, and Pakistan is also not really, you know, completely safe, because they have said that they have barricaded, they have put wire fencing, because they say that we are hosting more than 1 million refugees and we can have. But the Taliban has also never acquiesced with the Durand Line, the so-called Durand Line. So there are lots of problems.
But if I ask you, what will be the determining factor? I mean, the power, pelf, or religion? I mean, Taliban are predominantly the Pashtun. So they would not welcome Tajiks and Hazaras and Shias in their fold. And Mr. Raisi, being the hardliner in Iran, would also not like to a Sunni domination in that part of the region. So what dominate in future, let's say if the Taliban comes into the power? Religion or the power, or let's say some other things?
I think basically it will be raw power, which will really sort of, you know, but of course, if they are going to establish an Islamic emirate, then I think it has implications for, because all these others, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, they are all Sunni countries. They are not Wahhabis, they are not sort of as extremist fundamentalists as the Taliban, but they are all Sunni denomination countries, and unlike Iran, which is a Shia denominated country.
Yeah.
So I think there are these problems that will come to the fore, but for the time being, it is going to be pure power, which is going to be power play, which is going to be at the fore. And I think all the countries will really have to see as to they want peace, they want quiet. The last word I'll mention here is that although the Americans are out, and we've been speaking that they have forces only in Qatar and Bahrain, but America is trying very hard to locate local bases in any of these states, whether in Tajikistan or in Uzbekistan. Kyrgyzstan, they had earlier, they were thrown out from there. They were thrown out of Uzbekistan also, but they have been trying very hard not to put too many ground forces, but to at least have air power. But of course, they face a problem because neither Russia nor China, although they realize in terms of security, it will be to their benefit and advantage. But in terms of geopolitics, they don't want to give any advantage to the United States. And Imran Khan in Pakistan has also said that we will not allow any US base to come here, because the Taliban has said that any country which provides base to America, they will face the wrath of the Taliban, they will face attacks from Taliban. So there are those challenges also.
Dr. Chalia, I mean, Talibans have been giving the very clear-cut instructions to the people in Afghanistan. I mean, the way they normally function. In fact, couple of reports are there that there have been a couple of killings of the journalists as well in recent time. But will they be different this time or not? I mean, because now they have gained the legitimacy since 2016 onward. They have been talking to Russians and Chinese. Now, with this peace talk with the US, they have gained some sort of a legitimacy. So my question that this time, will there be something different or not?
Yeah, I think if it's a power sharing agreement, they will be different. They will have to accommodate, some of the freedoms, personal liberties, civil liberties, gender equality, a little bit, whatever has happened last 20 years. They cannot completely, destroy all that. And remember, legitimacy, yes, they have got through the Qatar, through the peace process that the Americans started last year. But on the other hand, if they try to take over and re-establish the Islamic Emirate, who will recognize it? A sovereign. The last time, 1996 to 2001, Taliban was recognized only by 3 countries: Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. No other country, not even China, or forget Russia or US or any of the neighboring countries, recognized that regime. And it did not last very long. It fell in 5 years. So they know it. Most of the top leadership of Taliban know that if they have to attain legitimacy in the sense like of running a sovereign state, then they need not just a de facto legitimacy, which is control over the borders and over territory, but also external recognition. Who will represent Afghanistan in the United Nations? Will the Taliban ambassador, or will it be an ambassador of a government in exile? Those things have happened in the past. So I think they will be mindful to that extent. And I think the message that should go out right now, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the main regional organization, Dr. Jaishankar is going there shortly again. Both Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, right now, I think we should all immediately declare we will not recognize. Dr. Jaishankar has said legitimacy of the new state or the new power structure is important. It matters. How the government is formed matters. They cannot just use force and then declare an emirate and say now you recognize. So aid, sanctions, UN seat, development assistance, all those are tied to the legitimacy and recognition. So I think that's one card. Collectively, if we all play and put the message out right now, I think it's better. And then the Taliban will realize there are limits to how far they can railroad everybody to follow their way.
Time is not much to go for much further, Ahmed, but quick response from you. In a crucial policy shift, India opened a back-channel dialogue with Taliban recently. In fact, Taliban also confirmed it. How do you see this move, and is it practical, pragmatic at this moment, and what benefit it will draw for India's interest in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I think putting it very briefly, what India has done and the time that India has done, it is very correct. India has not given up on its policies that, we want an Afghan-controlled, Afghan-owned peace process, reconciliation. We want that all the benefits that have accrued to the Afghan state over the last 20 years, that is in terms of democracy, in terms of freedoms, in terms of rights of women, education for the girl child, in terms of protection of minorities, that all those benefits and all those advantages will be preserved. So, you know, on our basic fundamental position, we have not given up on anything. But you see, when we see that in September 2020, it is the Ashraf Ghani government itself is getting into a dialogue, into a conversation with the Taliban, then who are we to stay away? You know, after all, if we are in full support of the Ashraf Ghani government, and we have been there. We did not really participate in a very active manner in the February 2020 signing ceremony. It was only our ambassador who was, as an observer, he went there. But right now in September 2020, when the negotiations started, then a senior officer from Delhi went and participated in that meeting. And Dr. Jaishankar spoke virtually over the internet. He's, you know, in the virtual format. He gave an address to that meeting. So I think backdoor channels, but I don't think we are getting in conversation with those elements of the Taliban which are so very thick with Pakistan. Because as I said, Taliban is also some sort of an amorphous body. It's not a very united body. So I think it is good because our interests and our stakes in Afghanistan are huge. So we are reaching out, as we've said, to every element of the domestic actors, domestic players, as also the international players and actors. And you would have seen that, you know, when Dr. Jaishankar was in Qatar or in Iran or in Moscow, there were also the Taliban representatives in all these capitals and all these countries. So I think it is good that we are reaching out to them, because when you are talking about legitimacy, it's important. Taliban would want legitimacy from India. Taliban would want investment from India. India is the largest bilateral donor to Afghanistan. So I think it's in the interest of Taliban also to have strong and positive relations.
Very quick comment from you, Dr. Chaulia. I mean, do you agree with what Ambassador Sajjana is saying, that in fact Taliban would also be wanting a legitimacy from India?
Yeah, we are using that card proactively with them, I think. And Anurag, it's important. The Wall Street Journal has reported Taliban already guaranteed China that they will not interfere in Xinjiang. They have given a public comment saying, even though the Muslims may be under threat in Xinjiang, we will not interfere. China is a sovereign country. We also would like a public affirmation from Taliban that they will not interfere in Kashmir. That's good enough for us, and we will hold them to account for that, you know. So let it come out and let it come in writing, in a secret agreement or in public or whatever. That's when, if China can be given an assurance by Taliban, why not India? You know, India will support Taliban and the new hybrid state that will come with Taliban also being part of the power structure. We are realistic and we are willing to work with them.
Okay. On this note, we have to wrap up the show. Thank you very much, Dr. Chaulia. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sajjana, for coming and talking to us. So, situation is evolving, and especially in Afghanistan, I mean, India has pulled out its diplomats and security personnel from Kandahar. But as the things will settle probably, and some sense would prevail after some times, India may resume its consulate in Kandahar. But things at the moment are very, very crucial and critical. That's all we have in this edition of Public Forum. Thank you very much for watching.